Have you ever had that one piece of advice that you got and it changed the way you did business or the way you worked with buyers and sellers? My next guest, Michelle Billings, President of Ohio Realtors and an agent with Coldwell Banker Real Estate, got that advice from her mom. And she shares it on the podcast, and it's advice that anyone can use in their business. Michelle, welcome to the Real Trending Podcast.
Thank you, Tracey, for inviting me.
Yeah, so we met at Ohio Realtors, and I thought I need to get this person on my podcast. So I want you to first, talk a little bit about your real estate experience. I know you're with Coldwell Banker, but you're also the president of Ohio Realtors. So tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so I am a licensed realtor, and I'm actually, although I'm the president of Ohio Realtors, I'm actually licensed in both Ohio and Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I've been licensed for 23 years, so it has been quite the journey and very enjoyable. And like you said, I am the 2025 president of Ohio Realtors.
Yeah, so with your dual jobs, I'm sure you're seeing a lot that's going on in the industry right now. So what are you seeing as some of like the major industry trends happening?
Yeah, there's always something happening
Mm-hmm.
in our industry. I think the biggest thing right now we're seeing affordability,
Mm-hmm.
and we're watching how that plays out. The gap between housing costs and the income growth have created some market pressure, and thereby driving the need for more policy changes and interventions, as well as increased discussions about alternative models. And then also because consumers have an unprecedented access to market data, the role of the real estate professional has changed as a result of that. And then last but not least, I would say the acceleration of technology and the adoption has changed everything from how properties are shown, how they're marketed, to how we're transacting and how things are analyzed.
Yeah, there have been some recent studies that, basically post settlement, the top agents are actually listing even more. They have more of a share of the listings, but they also, their commissions have stayed relatively stable. I know it's the buy side that will probably suffer a little bit moving forward. And I know we've got this whole clear cooperation going on where a decision will be made by NAR soon. So we've got a lot going on in the industry.
We do. It's
Yeah.
never a dull moment.
So, how have you prepared for some of the changes, and how do you, as through your leadership with the Realtor Association, how are you working to help other agents prepare for just the shift in the market and a new administration making policy changes, and like you said, some of the challenges of affordability and that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like change is inevitable, right? And this is not the first major shift our industry has gone through. But I would also say that it's important that agents and brokers and people that are in the industry um, educate themselves and make sure that they are getting the correct information, and that they're also sending and giving the consumers the correct information. At Ohio Realtors, we've prepared pretty well. What we found is that if we communicate early and often, and arm our members with the information, that has helped tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the Realtor associations have done a lot with just, not only building the new forms that need to be done, but, holding classes and doing education sessions on everything that, they need to know moving forward. And most agents and brokers are really looking for practical ways to build a better business. So, what are some tactical strategies or habits that you recommend to help real estate professionals kind of thrive in this competitive market?
Yeah, sometimes we get caught up on the new shiny objects. What I've been telling people is to really get back to the fundamental basics, things that we did in the past, like making sure you're building those relationships. I understand that we were in a very fast moving market over the last several years. That has calmed quite a bit. And so building those relationships, also maybe stop waiting on the client to ask for the updates and be proactive, and you communicate with them at an early stage of the transaction, as well as communicate with them more. On a marketing standpoint, I would just say build your content around life transitions. People don't wake up and decide to move. They have things going on. They're getting married, they're having kids, they're changing jobs. Create content that speak to those moments.
Yeah, that's great information. And you've been in real estate 23 years now. So what do you feel like is your superpower as an agent in just working with clients or lead generation, marketing?
Yeah, I really think my superpower is the ability to meet people where they are,
Mm-hmm.
and also give them the information that they need and making sure that information is timely. I always tell clients that my job is not to make the decision for you, but my job is to give you good, bad, and ugly so that you can make an informed decision. And people respect that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a specific niche that you work, like first time home buyers, luxury properties?
Yeah. I used to love first time home buyers. I don't see that many of those anymore. I specialize in a lot of luxury, relocation. I'm really good at fostering those relationships within my sphere and my database. And so I tend to focus on those areas. And lately I've been getting into some light commercial.
Okay. And when you say like you're really good at fostering relationships, what are some things that you do or some tips that you can provide agents who are really struggling to kind of move further from the transaction to a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not a real big, Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, all of those things are very important. Social media is very important. A lot of times I'm looking at what's going on social media and I'm taking those conversations off of social media.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see a client that is getting married or they've had a baby or someone's sick in their family, I'm taking those conversations um, off of social media, and I'm really fostering that by
Mm-hmm.
picking up the phone and calling them. Sometimes it's a simple text. If I see an article, I may send them a text and say, hey, I saw this, congratulations, or what have you. And I think that means a lot to clients. I would say I was in a listing appointment yesterday, and the reason why they reached out to me was because I had taken a conversation. They had a new baby,
Mm-hmm.
and I had reached out to them and said, congratulations. I did not know that they were thinking about relocating back to where their family was,
Mm-hmm.
but those are the type of things that happens.
Yeah. And, it's so funny because, it's such a simple thing, or it seems simple to just pay attention and spend a couple hours a day just looking through social media and making phone calls. But it's so hard to do. You always find something you can do different, Oh, I'll do my taxes,
Yeah.
rather than do that. But it makes such a big impact.
It does. I mean, we all get distracted because there's so many distractions now.
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing to that is that you really have to be intentional. You
Hmm.
have to time block, and you just have to make a choice. Either you're going to, stay focused
Hmm.
and be consistent and do the things that you need to do to move the needle, or you're going to allow these distractions
Hmm.
to move you in a different direction. But the problem with that is, a month or 2 months down the road, you're looking and you're saying, hey, I haven't closed anything.
Yeah. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
So the big buzzword now, post settlement, is really value, and it's expressing your value to buyers and sellers. What are some things that you're doing, that you're doing differently that maybe you didn't highlight some of the things that you did, or maybe when you solved a problem, you didn't tell them because you just wanted it to be smooth. So what are some ways that you're providing value or really communicating value
Mhm.
differently today?
Yeah, I think it's important that in our industry that we get really comfortable with communicating our value, with explaining, hey, this is a problem that I solved, or I had a similar situation and this is how we resolve that. All too often we get caught up on, hey, I sold this many houses per year, or I've sold this in volume. Well, first of all, the consumer does not understand that. And so you have to start really listening to the consumer, listening to their needs, and finding ways to communicate things that will help them, that's going to problem solve, and then let them know that you've done this.
Mhm. I mean, I think that's so important because I know for me, when working with an agent, I want to know what problem they're, going to solve for me. I don't really care. I mean, I guess I do care how many transactions they had or their experience, but then again, I don't necessarily care if they seem like the right person for the job, and I just want them to convince me of that without telling me a bunch of numbers, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do ourselves a disservice,
Mhm.
not only to consumers, but to people entering the industry,
Mhm.
because a lot of us we make it look very easy,
Mhm.
and it's not. It is work, and sometimes you're working very long hours. And our job sometimes is not necessarily, there may not be a problem, but
Mhm.
before there is a problem, communicate that to the client. So if
Mhm.
you're in a situation where they may be in a multiple offer situation, and you know that if they go over this price by a certain amount
Mhm.
and it may cause an appraisal issue, tell them.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think that communication is so important. I want to move on to some of the other issues you brought up, which is housing affordability. We've got higher interest rates, home prices are have remained high, which is all good news for the industry. Not the interest rates, but the home prices.
Yeah.
But it's tough on buyers. So, how can realtors support clients who are really navigating those challenges? And do you have any creative solutions for helping to kind of solve for that issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really need to understand the market.
Hmm.
You need to know what's going on in the market. You also, again, you need to listen to your customer, or the consumer, and if they
Hmm.
say, "Hey, we want to live in this area, and we want to only pay this for this," you need to know that market, and you need to be able to have those hard conversations and be able to offer them alternative solutions. The other piece to that is understanding, okay, what financing options are out there.
Hmm.
How can we creatively write the offer? Do we ask the seller to pay for a temporary buy down,
Hmm.
for the buyer to help them get into that home, because it could be in a couple years, they can refinance, or they can afford that bump. What down payment assistance programs are out there? What grants are out there that can help them?
And are you at Ohio Realtors? What are some of the legislative proposals that you have going on? Do you have any related to housing affordability, or what are some of the things you're really working on?
Yeah, we do. We do. Actually, our legislative day in Ohio is at the end of the month, and so
Hmm.
we're preparing for that. One of the things that we're working on is trying to stave off the rising pressure of the property taxes
Hmm.
and the municipal income taxes. What we found is that there were 41 counties that underwent reevaluation in 2023, and I think another 20 or so have just undergone evaluation, which in some cases have risen prices up 40%, or
Hmm.
at least we've seen housing prices go up 40% of the market values in some areas, which have increased property taxes. And in some instances, people are being priced out of their houses,
Mm-hmm.
especially those people that are on fixed incomes or what have you. That can also, affect someone's ability to afford a house. So
Mm-hmm.
we have legislation that we're making proposals to that. The other thing is with the inventory being so low, which that's also creating pressure as far
Mm-hmm.
as housing prices. We're rolling out what we call a pattern book, where
Mm-hmm.
it gives municipalities some options to where they don't have to undergo the cost of architects or zoning and building things. So we have these pre-approved plans, which we hope will help cost wise. The other thing that we're doing is supporting private property rates and short term rentals, because, of course, in some municipalities and areas, the short term rentals are under attack. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Here in Florida, our legislator sessions they're in session right now. However, I said that. So, and I know one of the things they're floating is no property taxes. Now, eliminating property taxes. I don't know how you do that in a state that doesn't have a state income tax. I would love for them to eliminate property taxes. That would be
mhm.
wonderful. I don't think it's going anywhere, but it's something that our governor has floated, and hey, if they could do it and not take money away from schools or other things, then great.
Yeah, I've been watching that one.
I
I've
know.
been watching Florida for a number of reasons.
For sure.
Because I have a lot going on. But yeah, I had that same question. Like, well, how does that work?
Yeah. Now, does Ohio have a state income tax?
We do.
Okay, I thought so. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I want to get personal a little bit here, and I want to talk about, I found that, people have a lot of aha moments, personal or professional, but what was the most impactful aha moment that you've had in your career?
Oh my goodness. I've had several of them, but the one that has really stuck is a little bit personal for me. My mother, I was in the process of buying upgrading houses. So I was moving up, and it was quite a jump. And I kept bugging my mother. I kept calling her and like, I don't know, what do you think? Asking her all the questions. And my mother said to me, she said, this is exactly what your clients go through. And she said, so the way you're feeling right now and the jitters you have in your stomach of making such a move, that's what your clients are going through. And I've never forgot that. And so I think that has helped me listen a lot more. It has also helped me be a lot more patient and understand like where they're coming from, because this is not their thing. They're not buying and selling every day. I've had clients that have bought 4 and 5 times, but they're still looking to me to be that trusted advisor to help them make the right decision.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, it is true when you're on the other side of it and just kind of, showing that empathy to the people that you're working with. That's great advice from her. So yes, definitely.
Yeah.
In an era that when consumers have so much information online, what do you feel is the core value of a realtor today?
Yeah, consumers, they do have a lot of information. Sometimes
Mhm.
it can be overwhelming too
Mhm.
for the realtor to say, "Oh my gosh, now what do I do?" They have all of this information. But our core value is, we need to help them decipher that information. We need to help them analyze that information and break it down in terms so that they understand it and it's relatable. We understand our markets a lot better. We understand the micro markets. We understand um, what's going on, what's happening, and most of us, we also know what's on the horizon, which in many aspects they don't know that, and so it's up to us to package that and be the consultant in that manner.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much information online. It is hard to know what is true, what's accurate, what should I be paying attention to. and a realtor can kind of break through all of that noise and really, it seems so easy. Oh, I found this house online. This is the one I want, right? And then you find out it's out of your budget, or it's got, inspection issues or whatever it might be. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's always some nuance. It's funny because I had somebody come to me. I had a referral, and I called the referral, and it was a listing referral. And the person said, "Listen, I've already engaged an agent. I'm just going to work with this agent." And so
Mhm.
I let the referring person know. And a couple weeks later, they called me and said, "We want to work with you." And it was simply because they had questions about the settlement. I've never met these people, but they
Mhm.
had questions about the commissions and the settlement. And I took the time to explain to them and, kind of tell them what was misinformation
Mhm.
and what wasn't. And that's how I was able
Yeah.
to gain a new listing. So,
Have you had buyers and sellers ask you frequently about it, or do you find that you're explaining it because it's part of what you have to do now, but they didn't really even know about it?
no, I buyers and sellers, they're definitely aware
Hmm.
of it, but they don't understand the particulars and they don't
Yeah.
understand the background. And
Hmm.
so I have taken the proactive approach and taken the time to explain it, because it's going to come up.
Yeah. Yeah. I always wonder, just the average person on the street, I'm sure they don't understand it because it's very nuanced. But just whether they even, I think most people say, "Oh, I heard we don't have to pay as much in commissions anymore." That's all they hear. They don't know anything else.
They
And,
do.
right. Oh, so finally, my last question is really, moving forward, how can agents differentiate themselves and kind of clearly communicate value in this ever changing landscape of real estate?
My first piece of advice was just be authentic in your approach. Share real outcomes. Instead of saying, and I said this before, instead of talking about how many houses you sold, tell a specific story about how you helped a seller navigate multiple offers or an appraisal issue. Leverage your past clients more effectively. Share specific problems you help them solve, um, and ask them to share that, because the reality is their perspective will always be a lot more credible than you tooting your own horn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining the Real Trending podcast. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Well, thank you so much for having me,
Yeah.
and I hope to see you back in Ohio
Yeah,
soon.
absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.